guys, and welcome back to Riley's on the Road.
Last week we were in Alamogordo and Calsbad, New Mexico.
Let's check out what happened.
The drive from Caverns to White Sands was about 8 hours. It is called White Sands National Park because it is the largest gypsum dune field in the world. Gypsum is what makes drywall and is white. We drove on the sand road to get to the area we went sledding down. We borrowed 4 sleds from our campground and used those. It was so fun. We crashed a lot, but it was nice sand to land in. We were only there for one night and a little bit of a day. On our way out from White Sands, we stopped at McGinn's Pistachio Land. It is famous for being the home of the largest pistachio. They grow pistachios and grapes and sell their products in their giant store. We got to look around, and Dad bought some pistachios. There's a giant pistachio statue we took a picture by. Gemma made up this rhyme and dance for Pistachio Land.
Party at Pistachio Land.
On our way out from White Sands, we stopped at Blake's Lotta Burger and got some yummy shakes and burgers.
We went to church our first day in Calsbad. It was very different than what we are used to. We are learning that there are many different kinds of churches.
On Sunday, we visited Guadalupe Mountains National Park. We hiked 5 miles round trip to the Pratt Cabin in McKittrick Canyon. The trail was a moderate hike. McKittrick Canyon is known for its fall colors, and it did not disappoint. When we got to the cabin, a volunteer ranger told us all about the history of the cabin. Wallace Pratt built his cabin in this oasis in the desert from 1931 to 1932. It is built entirely out of limestone, even the roof. The limestone was quarried 4.5 miles from the cabin, and Pratt's hired hands would drag it back on their horses. Pratt's family used it as a summer home until 1940, but they continued to visit years after. In 1963, Pratt donated 5,000 acres of his land to the National Park Service, which greatly contributed to the creation of the national park in 1973. While we talked to the ranger more and started back towards the car, Dad walked another mile to the grotto, a really cool natural landmark. While we walked back down, we saw a tarantula. It was so cool. Dad saw it too.
This is the activity center we did school in. It was nice and big with toys for Brietta and Gemma to play with. There were sifters and water we used. My mom poured in the sand, and wowza, weren't there a lot of gems. After we mined for them, we traded stones.
Living Desert Zoo and Garden State Park is a zoo and botanical garden showcasing desert wildlife. Home to over 40 species of animals and hundreds of types of plants, it was a really cool stop. Some of the animals included wolves, a mountain lion, a black bear, a bald eagle, buffalo, a fox, javelinas, a native pig-like animal, pronghorn, rattlesnakes, a bobcat, prairie dogs, and even a baby elk. There was also a bird aviary and a reptile building. All the animals there cannot be released into the wild, and even though they are well taken care of, the park needs some maintenance and better upkeep.
As an outing one day, we went to Roswell, New Mexico. First, we went to the International UFO Museum and Research Center. It's a museum dedicated to what is called the Roswell Incident, and pretty much all things UFO related. There was a lot of stuff to look at. Fun fact, there have been movies and TV shows based off of the Roswell UFO sightings. After the museum, we went to the Roswell UFO Spacewalk. The story is, we were abducted by aliens and taken through space and the future before making it back to Earth. It was a really cool blacklight walk. Afterwards, we went to the UFO McDonald's. There were little alien statues we posed in front of, and the whole thing was shaped like a UFO with a space theme. It was definitely the most interesting McDonald's I've ever been to.
On On Friday, we went to Calsbad Caverns. We were excited as we descended the 750 feet from the visitor center to the caverns in an elevator. We got to go on a special tour with a ranger to see rooms not available to see on the self-guided tour. On the King's Palace tour, we saw the King's Palace, the Papoose Room, the Queen's Chamber, and the Green Lake Room. The first room we went to was the King's Palace. Here, the ranger turned all the lights off except for 2 candle lanterns, so we could experience the cave like the first explorers did. Then he blew out the candles and we experienced complete darkness for the first of 2 times on the tour. Then we moved to the Papoose Room. The namesake of the room, a stalagmite, casts a shadow that looks like a Native American woman carrying her baby in a papoose, or a bag used to carry a baby on her back. After that, we walked to the Queen's Chamber, another beautiful room that we experienced complete darkness in, this time for longer. It was a truly surreal experience. We couldn't even see our hands in front of our faces. Our guide was very informative about the caves and its past. While we were going to the next room, we saw the cutest and my favorite formation in the entire cave, the bashful elephant. It looks like a little elephant turned away bashfully. The last room is the Green Lake Room, named after a small lake with a bright green color. Then we went back to the surface and ate lunch we brought from the trailer. We took a self-guided tour of the big room next. The walk was very easy and 1.25 miles long. The big room is the largest single cave chamber by volume in North America. At approximately 4,000 feet long, 625 feet wide, and 255 feet tall at its highest point, it is one big cave. Calsbad Caverns is a large limestone cave system. Although it is likely that native people in the region knew about the caverns, American settler Jim White is credited for the discovery and first exploration of the caverns. The 16-year-old cowboy found the entrance in 1898, and he often went exploring alone with only a makeshift lantern to guide his way. In 1903, he showed his friend the cave, who thought it would be a good place to mine bat guano, or poop, because the caverns are home to thousands of bats. They mined the guano for 20 years until it became a national monument and sent it to California for farmers to fertilize their citrus trees. The first pictures of the big room were taken in 1918 by Ray V. Davis, but they weren't published until 1923 in the New York Times. After that, the pictures drew attention of authorities, and Jim White guided Robert Hooley from the General Land Office as he mapped and surveyed the caverns. On October 25, 1923, Carlsbad Cave National Monument was created. To draw people to the cavern, it was advertised that visitors could take home a cave feature with them. Visitors were allowed to walk around in the rooms, such as the King's Palace, and break off pieces of formations. There were even school dances held in the King's Palace and a wedding at the Rock of Ages. And that greatly damaged the cave, especially the King's Palace, where most of the floor is barren of stalagmites. On May 14, 1930, Congress designated Calsbad Caverns National Park. In 1931, the elevator shaft was built. From 1975 to 1977, the park's lighting system, installed in 1926, was replaced with LED lights to prevent further degradation of the cave features. In December 1995, Calsbad Caverns was declared a World Heritage Site. About 350,000 people visited Calsbad Caverns in 2021, and with all the natural beauty, I can see why. It is 30 miles long and reaches a depth of 1,027 feet underground. After we finished the big room walk, the girls and I took the elevator up so we could complete their junior ranger books. Mom and Dad walked up the natural entrance, about 1.25 miles. It was a paved path, but very strenuous uphill. Then we watched the bat flight as they leave their cave. Cameras are not allowed, so not to disturb the bats, but it was really cool. A ranger told us all about the bats until they started to leave. The bats slept in 2 groups, which is unusual for them. It is estimated that about 300,000 Brazilian free-tailed bats live in the cave. They left the cave by spiraling up to gain elevation. We definitely recommend seeing the bats if you ever go to Calsbad Caverns National Park. My dad was the one taking all of these amazing pictures. He's been wanting to come here since he was a boy, and since our first trip was canceled due to COVID, he was really excited to see the caves.
This week was a busy one. It started with our arrival at Alamogordo KOA when we found out they had no reservation on file for us. Oops, that was probably my bad. Planning takes a significant amount of my time, and inevitably, something is bound to slip through the cracks. Luckily, they had one spot, but for one night only, so we were safe for the night. Alamogordo is not the nicest area, so boondocking wasn't an option. I called Carlsbad KOA right away to see if they could accommodate us one day earlier so we would have a space for the next night. Gotta say, God was looking out for us. Not only did they have a spot, but KOA has a deal: if you stay 6 nights, you get the 7th one free. So we actually saved money because we weren't spending the extra night in Alamogordo. Plus, they had to move our assigned spot to an end cap, which was such a blessing. You saw from the photos that we had a great view, no neighbors, and green space on both sides of the RV, which is a rarity in RV parks. Most of our activities revolved around the national parks and were covered by the pass, but the tour was difficult to reserve and cost extra, and of course, the Roswell UFO sites were extra. My previous experience with New Mexico through the Navajo Nation, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Santa Rosa, and Tucumcari have positioned it as my least favorite state. I have never felt safe in any town staying the night, stopping for gas, or a bathroom break. I'm happy to say that Carlsbad and Roswell were very different from the north. These towns are booming. There's building and industry everywhere. New grocery stores, restaurants, hotels. The people have hope. I found out that in 2018, they found the biggest oil and gas reserve ever found in Eddy County. Not only does it provide oil industry jobs, but also all of the jobs to grow a bustling city. Tax revenues are through the roof, and they expect this to continue for decades. Such an eye-opening lesson on the effects of hope and opportunity in different regions.
Before we left Carlsbad, Gemma put the New Mexico sticker up. That's number 5.
We did a lot of cool things in New Mexico.
See you next week on Rise on the Road.
Bye!